Welcome boys and girls from YouTube. My name is Sloth, this is the SlothForge, and as you can see today, we are once again on the test servers. Because today we will have an in-depth look at Hvitar. And since I don't own her, I don't have access to the Hvitar on the main servers, I had to jump on the test servers to make a little showcase of Hvitar. And there is actually a little problem when it comes to testing Hvitar on a test server. The problem is that the arena is very empty on the test servers because there are not many players on the test servers. As you can see, even in the top 10, there are a bunch of bot accounts in the top 10, and those bot accounts, they are just not reliable. They are like free wins, and even from the strongest players, or not from the strongest players, but from the real players, even they don't have built their heroes at all, or most of them at least. Or on the other hand, there are like those teams where I will probably not win against with my uninspired Hvitar. So this is why showcasing her right now is not that easy. But I have not decided if I go for Hvitar in the next banner. So maybe if I go for her, I will probably make a small showcase of her in the arena as well. But in the end, it does not matter. It is not that important. I will tell you in theory how to use her, how to build her, how to build a team around your Hvitar. And actually, when it comes to PvP, there is not this one best team. It is always around countering the enemy team when it comes to PvP. So this is why there is not the best particular team when it comes to Hvitar. But I will show you some different very strong heroes that you can use in the same team as you're using your Hvitar. And now let's talk a little bit about Hvitar. And before we talk about her stats, we talk about her skills real quick, because there are actually some different approaches when it comes to build Hvitar. First, let's talk real quick about her aura. As you can see, it increases the allies attack in Grand Gladiator Arena, so this already screams what this hero is designed for. She is designed for arena. And not only arena, actually, there is one other area in the game where she is extremely strong as well. It is at Hvitar. She is probably, I think, if I remember correctly, like from the top 10 fastest teams that cleared Hvitar, I think that at least 8 or 9 were using Hvitar. So this is actually an area where she really shines as well. Hvitar and PvP. So now let's talk about her skills. Her passive skill. First, once the battle starts, she changes the weather to Ice Wind for 15 seconds, and in this Ice Wind, enemies that are inflicted with the Frost debuff get a little bit of additional derivative damage over time. Now, and she is dealing this derivative damage, but nevertheless, it is absolutely not recommended to build her with any enlightenment. She deals so much more damage when she's built for crit and attack than when built with enlightenment, so it is absolutely not recommended to build your Hvitar with enlightenment. So the first part is not that interesting, even though it has its usage for sure, but the second part is where it gets very interesting. She can execute enemies. She cannot execute bosses, but apart from bosses, she can execute all other enemies in the game once they are below 15%. And this is very strong. Executing enemies can be crucial in some particular PvP fights, and also it is actually a lot of fun to execute them. If you wonder what execute means, it just means that you just kill them no matter what. The only way to avoid this execution is with an unkillable buff. But even if you have the unkillable buff up and she tries to execute your hero gets down to 1 HP, and then the Ice Wind is still up. So the second that the unkillable buff goes off, the hero still dies. So she actually is countering those unkillable buffs as well. Because if you only have 1 HP, it does not matter how much derivative damage you're dealing. It is always enough, because you will always deal at least 1 damage. So this is why actually the first part of this passive is very interesting and very useful as well. So this is her passive. Very strong and a very unique passive. Her better skill, it is actually not that special. It is very simple. She just deals damage in this relatively big area, but nothing special at all. She can, in theory, inflict frost debuffs, but it is absolutely not recommended to build her with accuracy as well. So don't build her with enlightenment, don't build her with crit, don't build her with accuracy, sorry guys. No enlightenment, no accuracy, but with crit. Because this is what she is designed for. She is a nuker. Build her with as much attack and as much crit as possible, and that's it. And she will shine. Now her ultimate. This is extremely strong ultimate as well. Because first, now once again, she can change the weather to Ice Wind, which deals a little bit of additional damage, and then attacks all enemies. As you can see, it's a full AoE, and deal additional damage to frozen enemies. So if they are frozen, it deals like 1000% of attack, which is already a very, very good scaling, and also additional damage for every single enemy that is inflicted with frost. So yeah, you always want to build to pair your Hvitar with someone who applies frost, and the more the better. So for example, Losenia is a very good partner for your Hvitar because she can apply those frost debuffs in a very big area as well and very frequent as well. But we talk about the teammates in the next part of the video. First, let's talk a little bit about gear and her skills. But we're done with the skills actually. It is, as you can see, she's not that complicated, but yet very effective and very unique as well in my opinion. Now, let's talk about her gear. And before we get into the gear, first let's talk about the artifacts, because as I said, there are some different approaches when it comes to build Hvitar. And in my personal opinion, and now please take this with a grain of salt, because I did not test her yet. I cannot test her fully because I don't have her on the main server. And as I told you on the test servers, there is not that much competition in the arena. So it is very hard to fully test her here on the test server. So take this with a grain of salt. And if you have access to Hvitar, if you tried her with all those different artifacts, please let me know in the comments below what you think is the best artifact for her. But in my opinion, actually, one of the strongest, or maybe even the strongest, the best in-slot artifact for Hvitar is the lucky playing cards, or are the lucky playing cards. Because it guarantees your first 2 ultimates, if it is a plus 20, your first 2 ultimates to critical hit. So this means that you don't have to build her with any crit rate at all. So instead of focusing on crit rate, you can only focus on attack and crit damage and ignore all other stats. So if you use those lucky playing cards, it just makes building her way easier. And you can reach higher crit damage numbers than you can with any other item, because you can just ignore your crit rate. Because if you're not able to kill the enemy team with the first 2 skill castings of your Hvitar, then you probably won't win the fight no matter what. So this is why I've been facing many Hvitar teams, and always the Hvitars that made the biggest problems for me, that caused the biggest problems for me, were the Hvitars that were using the lucky playing cards. Just because they hit the hardest, because they can get the highest crit damage numbers possible. This is why I always really fear those Hvitars that are using the lucky playing cards. But there are other strong artifacts for your Hvitar. For example, of course, no questions asked, her exclusive artifact is also very strong. Especially the first part is very interesting because now you can actually execute your enemies if they are at 25 or lower HP. So this is very strong, don't get me wrong. But I actually would not recommend to go for the exclusive artifact on Hvitar, because if you have 2 Hvitars, if you were lucky and you just summoned a second Hvitar, then of course I would actually go with the artifact, but I would not recommend you to use another 300 dice to go for this artifact. Unless, of course, if you are a spender, if you are not only a low spender, but if you you spend a lot of money on the game, then sure, go for the artifact if you want it to be as competitive as possible. Then this artifact probably will help you in many different fights. But apart from that, I would not recommend to go for this artifact. It is strong, don't get me wrong, but it is not groundbreaking. And yet it is a very strong artifact for sure. But I actually always have the biggest problems with those Hvitars that are using the lucky playing cards. You could also, in theory, for example, use the Whisper of the Consumer, even though the second effect, does not help you at all, because it does not add up with her passive. But the first part is okay. You deal a little bit of additional true damage with your ultimate, and it provides you a good amount of crit damage. But another very, very strong item for Hvitar, and also very dangerous if this is if this is used correctly, is Darkthorn Claw, because now your Hvitar is ignoring shields. And the higher you get in the arena, the more teams will use some heroes that can place shields. For example, Veloja. Veloja is an extremely annoying hero in the arena, and if you want to counter those Velojas, give your Hvitar or your nuker at all, in general, the Darkthorn Claw, because now you will 100% fully ignore all their shields. So this is also a very, very strong item on your Hvitar. But in theory, you could use other items as well. But those are actually, in my opinion, the strongest items for your Hvitar. Now, let's talk real quick about the gear for your Hvitar. As I said, it's relatively straightforward. Just attack percentage on your chest, and either crit rate or crit damage, depends a little bit on your gear and on your artifact, crit rate or crit damage on your gloves. Now, if you are using the lucky playing cards, of course, you want crit damage on your gloves. And yeah, that's it pretty much. The best in slot for her, no questions asked, once again, is the 4-piece mythical items. Apart from that, another very strong set is first the Gambler set, just because of the 3-piece effect, and the Executioner set, of course, as well, because you want those critical hits to trigger, and then you just have this additional chance to deal a little bit of additional damage. But if you can manage to get 4 one-piece sets, one-piece items, or mythical items, then you should absolutely go for 4 different one-piece items. That's it pretty much. So as you can see, it is a relatively simple kit, relatively simple and easy to build her, and yet she is so effective. Now the next part. This is actually very interesting as well. The talents. Now, I saw all different rows, all different paths on Hvitar. I saw, and I've been looking, I've been watching, I've been spectating many Hvitar teams since day one actually, because she's always the hero that causes, as I said, the most problems for me. And I realized that those Hvitars, they are all using different talents. So first, you would think that going with the top row is recommended because it is every hero have access to her exclusive talent, and in general, those exclusive talents are very strong. But actually, her biggest damage does not come from Frost, not from her Frost, but in general, not from those Frost debuffs. Her biggest damage comes from her ultimate and from her execution. So this is why not that many Hvitars are actually using the top row, the talents. Instead, the most Hvitars that I saw are using this row, the middle row, and using the Frozen Gale, because it just helps you to deal a little bit additional, a little bit more damage with your ultimate. But I also saw many Hvitars using the bottom row of talents. So, long story short, all of those 3 rows are possible, but I would actually recommend you to go with one of those 2 rows. Not with the top row, but with the middle row or the bottom row. It depends a little bit on your roster, on your team. But in general, I think that the middle row is the strongest, because on the bottom row as well, you don't want to inflict those frost debuffs with your Hvitar, because you pair her with someone else who inflicts frost. So this is why the Frozen Gale is probably most valuable talent for your Hvitar. And, well, I think that's it pretty much when it comes to Hvitar. I hope that I said everything that I wanted to say. So now let's talk real quick about some teammates for Hvitar. Because as I said, the team around Hvitar is very important. And the most important part actually is that there is not the perfect Frost team, the perfect team built around Hvitar when it comes to PvP. Because in PvP, there are so many different teams. There are so many different strategies. And you always have to adjust your teams on the enemy team. You always you always try to counter your enemy team. So there is not the best team. It is a little bit flexible. But there are, of course, some extremely strong heroes, and there's some heroes, one hero in particular, that is probably always best in slot in combination with Hvitar. It is Electribi. But now, of course, Electribi, she is not only an exclusive, she's one of those exclusive support heroes, so she's extremely hard to get, and probably most people out there, most players out there, most of you don't have Electribi. If you have Electribi, no questions asked, you should use her in PvP. She is so strong. Her ultimate is so annoying and so strong. And just her whole kit, Electribi is such a strong hero. But what if you don't have Electribi? Then, as I said, you want your Hvitar to first to pair her with someone else that applies Frost. So, two very strong heroes to apply Frost are either Losenya or Auster. And actually, I saw more people using Losenya in combination with Hvitar than Auster. Auster is more focused on just dealing high amounts of damage. Losenya as well, but Losenya just is in general a little bit better when it comes to applying Frost and to apply many of those Frost debuffs. So this is why if you have both of them and you want to pair one of them with your Hvitar, then you will probably prefer Losenya over Auster. Now, apart from that, you want one tank, at least one tank, and Urion is a very good option, but another very strong option actually is Lucian. He is, once again, so annoying because his ultimate where he just jumps, or it is not his ultimate actually, where he jumps in the back row. You know, actually, it is the battle skill. Here he just jumps to a particular enemy. Right now, in this case, the enemy with the highest ultimate energy. So most of the case, it is somewhere in the back row. So he just can cause many problems for the enemy team. So this is why he is one very good hero for the tank. But there is also a very strong combination, for example, very strong tank in Repekas. He also extremely annoying and very strong tank. His passive is insane because he receives a little bit of the healing that your enemies receive. This is very strong. And also his battle skill. He can knock up enemies and stun enemies. Two of the probably strongest, or yeah, probably the strongest control effects. And also this ultimate is also so strong. He launches 3 attacks and all of them can apply one of those different debuffs. And all of those debuffs can be very annoying. Especially buff prohibition is very strong. Healing prohibition can be very useful in many areas, in many situations. Also recharge penalty, attack penalty. All of them actually are very useful. And Repekas is just such an annoying hero. He can deal good amounts of damage as well and is very hard to kill, and also CC monster. So actually he is an extremely strong hero for PvP, but not only PvP. Actually, I was thinking about if I maybe will go with, maybe we'll do another hero guide anytime soon about Repekas. Just because he is so strong and he is so versatile, you can use him in so many different areas of the game. Now, this is the core of your team. One tank, Hvitar for nuking for DPS. And if she's built good enough, actually you don't need another nuker, you don't need another DPS hero, because she can do the damage on her own. Now, for example, someone like Electribi, just to control the enemy even more. Another extremely strong hero for your Hvitar teams is Veloja. Just in general, Veloja is such a strong hero. Not only for PvP, also for PvE, she's insane. But for PvP, her shields are so strong. And there are some teams that don't have any DPS, some defensive teams that don't use any defensive or... sorry, let me repeat this. There are some defensive teams that don't use any offensive heroes. They just use 5 defensive heroes, so they just try to stall you. And those teams, most of the cases, use Veloja because she applies so big shields. She applies those shields very frequently. And if you give her the Aurelion Vest, it is even stronger. It is even harder to kill enemies or heroes that have a shield applied from Veloja. So Veloja, another very strong option. Another very good option actually, and a very strong hero in general to pair with Hvitar is Gulende, because he also has some very strong skills, especially his ultimate. This is like the bread and butter of your Gulende, because he applies attack penalty, which is very useful, makes it harder to kill you, and he cleanses all debuffs, or dispels all debuffs. And dispelling debuffs is relatively rare. Dispelling them on an AoE from your whole team is even rarer, and it is just very, very strong. And also this ultimate can deal very good amounts of damage as well. So if you're using Gulende, you could try to build him with good accuracy and also some attack and crit as well. And just watch him in combination with Hvitar nuking the enemy team down. Very strong, very interesting at least. Also, of course, Tauren is a very good hero in combination with Hvitar right now. Just to keep your tanks alive, so your Hvitar has the time to cast her ultimate. And I think that's it pretty much. Yes, I think that's it. And sadly, I cannot show you some arena battles, because yeah, you already saw it. There are not that many good teams right now to showcase Hvitar. But I hope that you now have a general idea of how to use Hvitar, how to build Hvitar, where she shines the most. And if you have any further questions, or if you disagree with something, please let me know in the comments below. I'm very interested in your opinions, and as I said, you have to take everything that I said today with a grain of salt, because I did not test her fully on the main server, so probably there is an even better artifact that I'm just not aware of. But I think that actually the lucky playing cards are the best artifacts on Hvitar. But now I think that's it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and see you in the next one.